To make fantastic sourdough bread with any kind of flour, you need to understand its characteristics. Today, we are making 50% semolina sourdough bread.
Semolina, or semola rimacinata di grano duro, is made from hard wheat, not from the common wheat usually used for bread flour.
Semolina is very popular for making pasta, couscous, and porridge, but it can be successfully used in bread as well.
Semolina has a coarser texture than classical flour, but should not be confused with rice or corn semolina.
Semolina comes from durum triticum wheat, and when ground in a coarser texture is called semola rimacinata.
If it is further ground to a very fine texture, it is called durum flour.
I made bread with durum flour before. You can find the video on the card above.
Besides its texture, semolina has a pale yellow color, has a more earthy aroma, and it's rich in proteins, but forms a low-quality gluten. This makes the dough less extensible and affects its structure.
However, there are some tricks that you can apply to overcome this issue. First, you can improve the structure by adding strong bread flour into its composition. And this is exactly what we'll do today. Then, you can make a longer autolyse of 2-3 hours to develop the gluten to its maximum potential. Or, you can increase the mixing time too for the same goal. The bread in this video is made by a special guest under my assistance. Let's see the recipe. Come!
Let's see the ingredients. 450 grams of semolina flour, 450 grams of strong bread flour, 700 milliliters of water, 180 grams of sourdough starter made with half semolina, 18 grams of salt. It is best to start mixing the flours with water by putting the water first in the bowl. If you put the flours first, a fine layer of flour sticks to the bowl. That will be more difficult to clean. I use lukewarm water to raise the dough temperature from the start. The semolina flour comes first over the water, as it is the thirstiest. The strong bread flour has its own role, to increase the gluten network quality in this bread. Although later I'll use a standing mixer, I prefer to do this first step manually. Why? I feel I do it better than the mixer, and it does not require too much effort. Well, at least for me. But these small hands will grow stronger one day. With just a bit of help, the dough is done. At this step, we only mix the flours with water, and the dough will stay for 2 hours to rest at 28 degrees Celsius. During this time, the flour will absorb the water and build a network of gluten bonds that will help us trap the CO2 bubbles inside the bread. This resting time of dough is called autolyse. Check the video on the card above to learn more about autolyse. The dough is ready to receive a sourdough live hungry population. The already prepared dough is a big meal for them. They will feed with the starch from the flour and produce good acids and CO2. With their full bellies, they will reproduce like crazy. Oh, imagine what a party they will have there! So let's start the party by allowing them to spread inside the dough and start eating. We'll do this with the help of a standing mixer set on a slow speed, but you can do this by hand too. 10 minutes of mixing are just right. The previous autolyse started the formation of the gluten network, so no need for extra mixing. After an hour of relaxation, we add the salts. The salt helps in building a strong gluten network and delay a bit our party called fermentation. In 5 minutes of mixing, the salt is well distributed in the dough. After mixing, we let the party go alone for 1 hour. While the sourdough bacteria and wild yeast do their job, we need to help also, by building the structure of their house. But first, this is too much dough for 1 loaf, so we'll divide it in 2. While doing this, we'll make some stretch and folds. They will reorganize the gluten network and build a stronger structure. As mentioned before, semolina is made from hard wheat that, although has more proteins, they form weak gluten connections. This dough is half semolina and half strong bread flour with a purpose. The bread flour good quality gluten will compensate for the low quality gluten of the semolina flour. Our interest is to build a strong enough network so it doesn't allow the precious CO2 created by the sourdough population to escape. A strong gluten network and a good production of CO2 are the secrets of making the best bread. This dough is special. The semolina absorbs a lot of water and swells. It feels less grainy and the dough looks puffier. The fermentation signs are low. Our party population still has too much food at this stage. They will need to multiply themselves to produce more CO2 bubbles together. That's why we need to let the dough rest again. Let the party continue. We'll put the dough on the table. Note that the dough falls by itself, leaving the bottom of the bowl clean. This is a sign that the gluten network is well formed. Lamination is a kind of stretch and fold, but in a larger way. You gently stretch the dough on the table as much as it allows you, trying not to break it. I teach my son how to do it. Pay attention to the movements and you can do it too. This is the second one. Let's watch it quickly. These big bubbles are not from fermentation process. They are air incorporated while manipulating the dough. We'll do 3 series of coil folds with resting time in between. This is also a kind of gently stretch and fold performed straight in the bowls. Those CO2 bubbles produced at our party slowly are rising the dough. We want to work gently to avoid damaging them. You need to lift the dough and fold it over itself. It is easy and clean. You don't get it perfect? Just practice. It will come with experience. After 45 minutes, the second set of coil folds. And after 45 minutes more, the third coil fold set. Semolina dough tends to have a shorter fermentation time than classic bread dough, so keep an eye on it. Do you see small bubbles on the bottom of the bowls? These are the real fermentation bubbles that we are looking for. I prefer to play safe and shape the loaves when they are not super puffed up. I feel that the interval of right fermentation time is very narrow for semolina flour. So I shape them when they are not fully risen. During the hot summer days, catching the dough at the right time might be tricky. Also, the fridge may fool me with higher temperatures than 4 degrees Celsius inside. Before shaping, I measured the acidity with a pH meter and the dough was 4.2 pH. To increase the tension on the surface, I also do stitching. Once again, look at the steps. I shape the dough as usually with the letter fold method. Fold super gently in 3 and then roll. Before taking the dough out of the fridge, heat the oven. When baking in the wood fire oven, my husband takes care of the fire. When the oven gets 270 degrees Celsius inside, I decorate and score the loaves. Decoration is an optional step, but I feel it gives personality to the bread. Teaching your kids to make bread is a fantastic experience. However, scoring with a sharp lame is not an activity for them, neither is the baking. I slide the loaves onto the floor of the oven. Then I add hot water to a tray in the back of the oven to create steam. I let them bake for 45 minutes at just a bit higher than 200 degrees Celsius. The loaves need to cool to room temperature before cutting them. If a 5-year-old boy managed to make these loaves, you can do it too. Just try! Let's see the crumb. A denser crumb is normal for semolina bread, perfect for spreading butter on. The second one is a bit smaller than the first one. But the crumb still looks nice.